Hey everyone, welcome to the MotoAlliance podcast. I am Peter Kapsner, and I am without my partner in crime, General Manager Kevin Book, for this episode. Kevin had to be away this afternoon, but his shoes will be ably and amply filled by a good friend of mine, Mark Smith of MLS Powersports. Mark, we've been friends for a very long period of time, and I'm not a guy who believes in reincarnation, but we hit it off so quickly, such kindred spirits, I would say, at least being vulnerable from my end now. It felt like kindred spirit that we must have been like shared caterpillars or something in a previous life.
Yeah, I'm sure that's true.
You seem skeptical that we were previously a single-celled organism.
Well, I'll tell you what's funny. I don't know if you remember it or not, but we actually built a relationship because I was interested in becoming a dealer of MotoAlliance products. And I was beating you up about your program, like in email. We're like going back and forth. And I'm like, this is terrible. You guys don't know what you're doing.
Yeah,
and
sure.
I loved it. I loved it that you not only went toe to toe with me, because I can be kind of aggressive in those situations. You not only went toe to toe with me, you did it with such good nature, and we ended up just laughing about it and building a relationship, and it's been awesome ever since.
Well, and actually, you were instrumental. I mean, kidding aside, and I do remember that, but you were instrumental because we started as a company pretty early in the 2000s when it was mostly B2C, meaning that we were selling direct to the consumer through channels such as Amazon and eBay and our website. And we hadn't really considered much of what it might mean to sell through dealerships. And you started getting wind of some of our products just maybe because some of the riders had them, having purchased them off of some of these internet channels, and said, hey, these products might be worth looking at. And I will say then, when we decided to develop a dealer program that we hadn't considered before, yeah, it was a wee bit abysmal, I would say. I want to say you were getting like 11% off and had to pay shipping or something ridiculous like that.
Yeah, it was something like that. And, we kind of came to be via eBay in the early days. And you guys were pretty active in that space too. And that's kind of how we heard about you. And, we had met some folks, had your products. And so we were excited about the product. But I remember specifically saying to you, you don't have a dealer program. You have like a volume discount program,
That's exactly right.
You went toe to toe with me, and you did it in your style, which is, very affable and friendly and likable, and it worked.
Well, it was so fun to work initially with you too, because did you get started in this? Was that the season when you were buying vehicles at auctions that were maybe salvage title level vehicles or had significant damage to them? Not frame damage, but damage that you could repair pretty easy and then outfit and resell. Was that the start of MLS?
Well, so kind of the way it started, like, I'm a very naturally blue collar guy. I'm always, repaired and did all my own stuff like that. And I was into racing cars and racing ATVs and all that kind of stuff. But I ended up in a white collar job. So I had a corporate job for many years, and it was, I'm based in an office, and it drove me crazy. It's like not what I'm made to do, I don't think. So I would go home at night, and that's how I stayed sane. I would used to be like I raced dirt track cars, and then we started having kids, and that became not in the budget anymore. And so I started playing with ATVs again, which I had done as a kid. And so it was never about making a profit or even doing anything for the public. It was purely just my own stuff. I like to soup stuff up and modify it and customize it and make it faster and all that stuff. And I had a mutual friend who had an ATV with a blown engine that he wanted me to repair. And I'm like, man, I don't really do that. I just do my own stuff. And this guy kept the shared friend kind of kept pestering me about it. And so I finally agreed to look at it for the guy. And I'm like, nah, I don't know. It's going to be whatever it was, $400 or $500 to repair the engine. And the guy couldn't afford to fix it. So he said, hey, why don't you just buy this from me? Well, the wheels turned. I'm like, I could fix this cheap, and then I could sell it and make some money. And it was always my wife is the most wonderful woman in the world, but the bone of contention in our marriage at the time is I would spend too much money playing with these ATVs and stuff. And so I got to thinking, if I could fix this machine, make some money, I could put that back into my hobby, and I did. So I repaired the machine. I had been kind of selling some stuff on eBay just here and there, just like trying to clear some junk up and make some money. And so I sold the ATV on eBay. And what was cool about eBay in the early 2000s is like the no reserve auction was still a thing. Like people, it got excitement. It was entertaining to people and it was fun. And so I sold it at no reserve auction. I made whatever, three, four, $500. And then I thought, if I could do like one of these a month, wow, I could have all kinds of fun. I could soup up all kind of stuff and not get in trouble. And so I started doing that. And I didn't care if they were broken or not. But what I learned is if I could buy the broken ones, I could buy them cheap, and I could make the repairs myself. And it wasn't like salvage titles so much as it was just, whatever. It had a bearing out or the engine wouldn't start. It had been sitting and the carburetor was gummed up or whatever. And that's kind of where it all began. So I always tell everybody it was like kind of a hobby that got out of control more so than a planned business.
Well, and how quickly did it go from maybe a vehicle a month to, did you get to several vehicles a week? Sometimes it seemed like I'd get on your website, you had a ton of vehicles for sale.
Well, like in the early days, it was just, once in a while. And then I kind of starts, this is like 02, 03, something like that. And then I started looking, I'm a business guy at heart. So I started looking at ways to like expand the profitability and expand. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe I could put a winch on them, or maybe I could put a snowplow on them, and I could draw, sort of add-on sales, right? I could say, hey, you've agreed to buy this, but for another $300, I could put a winch on it or whatever the money was. And so I started doing some of that. That's how I met you guys. And uh, so just fast forward a few years, roughly like, I think it was like '09. It grew so much that, well, somewhere in there, I learned that I could go to auctions. Like I could go buy like repossessed ones and stuff, which really became a thing when the economy, got problematic around that '05, '06 era. There were tons of them. And so we could buy them at repo auction, make any needed repairs, or really then it got to the point that it was just about volume. I didn't even care that we just bought nice ones, and we could sell them. But somewhere in there, I'm going to say '09, maybe it was 2010. I come home from work one day and my wife kept the books, and I honestly didn't care about the money. Like it was just fun to me. And I like making things grow and get better and bigger. And so I really wasn't paying that much attention. I knew we were making a little money. We took a year off because our youngest child was born, and I was bored out of my mind. She let me get back into it. But one day I come home and she's all upset. She's like, look, you gotta make a decision. You can have a career at your corporate job, or you can be an ATV guy, but you can't do both. You got to do one or the other. And she gets out the books and she's like, guess how much revenue we did this past year from the garage on eBay. I'm like, I have no idea. And we had eclipsed $1 million for
Oh
that
my
year.
gosh. That's stunning.
Well, it blew my mind. I'm
Yeah.
like, I would have never dreamed that, right? Like, because I did it all like in my free time, and then we'd gotten big enough that we had a couple of 18, 19, 20-year olds helping us out here and there, like doing some repairs and washing and taking pictures and stuff like that. And so I realized, she's making a good point. And so our faith is a big deal to us. We got very, we prayed about it a lot, and we were trying to sort through it. And once we got very prayerful about it, God made it very clear that He had this kind of plan for us, which made no sense to me. Like, I don't know why God would care if I sell four-wheelers or not, but I believe that He did, and he a sense revealed to us, through a various other means, kind of why I think He led us down this path. It's kind of become our ministry as well as our business, and He's blessed us a number of ways with it. And so right around 2010, I guess it became full time. So I gave up the corporate gig and the company car and all that stuff. And man, it was tough for a long time. Like it was beans and rice for a long time. We worked a lot, but it's still hard, but it's, as we've achieved some scale and grown over the years, it's certainly blossomed since then.
Yeah, and you mentioned faith. That's one of the things that you and I share, and I'd love to follow up with that in just a minute. But getting just a couple more questions about the business. Was the next leap that you took, did you start getting in partnerships with vehicle manufacturers, and was Arctic Cat slash Textron sort of your first major relationship in that level, or was that not
It-
first when you got into it?
yeah, Arctic Cat was first. We didn't really care to do that. Like we were selling a bunch of pre-owned machines, and we were really good at it. And the truth is, most bigger power sports dealerships are not very good at pre-owned. They're kind of it scares them a little bit. One, it's cash intensive, and two, it's a little riskier in that you trade for one, it ends up having a hidden problem and it gets expensive, or you sell one and the guy has a problem with it and then he's mad at you. And um, we got good at it. We got good at refurbishing. We got good at making sure we were making good purchases, not problem units. And if we did get a problem unit, that we made sure it was right and correct, and we didn't stick it on a consumer. And uh, so we didn't care that much. But once we opened the retail store, like when we originally decided to go full time, we said we're not going to open a store. We're going to continue to sell online. Well, like, people beat our door down. Like, random people would just walk in and want to buy something or want us to repair their thing or whatever. So we're like, gosh, maybe we got to become a normal dealer. And when we did that and we had like foot traffic and people walking in, well, they wanted to finance things and we knew nothing about that. So we just had never been down that retail finance road, and we got to poking around and talking to friends, and everybody told us, you got to get an OEM. You have to sign up with one of the big guys, and if you do, they will, they'll make those inroads for you. They'll bring you a lot of those tools, and that was true. So we looked around, and so now we're like 11 maybe, and we knew that side by side was coming. Like, we were plugged into the industry enough that especially sports side by side was about to explode. And really, that was Polaris at the time. Well, our local Polaris franchise was taken. We just had another Polaris dealer really close to us. And Arctic Cat had teased the original Wildcat, like at a dealer show, and it was all over YouTube, and people were talking about it. And so we reached out to Arctic Cat, and we ended up signing up with them. And they told us, like, if you can sell 15 machines in year one, that's kind of what success looks like for a new Arctic Cat off-road dealer, because we don't do snowmobiles down here. And we sold like 100, and we didn't. They would ask us, like, "What are you guys doing?" We're like, "I don't know. We're open every day. We have them on the floor. Like, people want to buy them, we say yes." Like, we didn't feel like we were doing anything really special. But what was true of Arctic Cat, especially at that time, and is often true these days of the less prominent OEMs, is like, if most places that were an Arctic Cat dealership, it wasn't their primary line, especially in the South. It was like, okay, we're Honda and Yamaha and Kawasaki and Polaris, and we got a couple of Arctic Cats in the back corner. For us, Arctic Cat, was all we had to think about. So, we had every machine and every color and every option. We knew every program. We knew every way to rebate them. We knew every way to accessorize them. We knew, stuff that maybe a bigger dealer didn't care to think about because it wasn't their main thing. And so we had a lot of success with that for a lot of years. It made us, I think we've sold more Arctic Cat off-road product than anybody in history as dealers go. It's not as big a deal to us now, but still a thing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and recently, I mean, Kawasaki, is that maybe one of your primary vehicle manufacturers that you sell at this point? I know you and I talk a lot about the KRX and the Mule and some of what they've come out with.
Yeah, we also have Suzuki and Kawasaki. We're top 5 nationally for both of them now in terms of like unit volume. And where that came from is like, when really even slightly before Textron acquired Arctic Cat, we got nervous because we got really good at it, but we had a lot of eggs in that basket. And we're like, gosh, if anything ever goes wrong with Arctic Cat, we're pretty exposed. And so we started looking to diversify a little bit, and that's where Suzuki came in, and then eventually Kawasaki, and we're going to add another one here before too awful long. And so that we just kind of applied the same principles, right? So we just kind of treat people the way you want to be treated and be easy to buy from. Like, we don't, we're very transparent in our pricing. We don't ever surprise people with fees that they don't know exist. We're aggressive with our pricing. We don't negotiate. So we kind of, you want to buy something from us, we're happy to tell you how much it is, but that's how much it is. Like
Hmm.
we're not really debatable, but we're also well priced. We're not like the most expensive place to buy. Probably not the cheapest, but we're certainly transparent and easy to buy from.
Hmm. Well, you referenced faith earlier, and one of the other, besides a really good pint of beer, one of the other shared affinities that you and I have is that shared faith. And boy, things have really changed. I think just in families, in society at large, probably in businesses, schools, across the board these last 15 years. I don't even know if I can name how it's all changed. My instincts say so much has changed. And I think you and I probably have both seen it in different environments. You've worked with young people in local churches. I've worked with young people at local universities. And things are, how would you characterize it being maybe different or trickier to navigate? And how has your faith been helpful for younger people as they're entering the world? Because I find it difficult right now to understand everything.
Man, we probably don't have enough time
Right.
to totally approach this subject, but like you said, I was a youth leader in my church for many years and almost 15 years, and really have a heart for young people and love kids and teenagers. And what I love about teenagers more than anything is they're so honest.
Hmm.
Um, like you talk to adults lie all the time, right? And I'm not immune to that either. But like
I
I
feel
feel like
convicted right now,
teenagers,
Mark. I feel convicted.
like you sit in a room of teenagers, and sure, teenagers are silly, right? And they play games about trying to be cool and all of that. But when they start pouring their heart out, they will pour their heart out, right? Like and tell you exactly what they feel about things, and I love that about them. But man, to your point, like social media has changed the world tremendously, and there's wonderful things about it. Like as a business person, right? It's how we all advertise now. It's how we all communicate with our customers, and um, it's how you keep up with your long distance family. I mean, so there's all kinds of great things, but my gosh, has it changed our society for the worse in many ways. And, as an example of that, like in doing business, I'm sure you have the same experiences at times. Like we coach our staff, and a lot of our staff are younger, that we coach them that, man, never have a debate with a customer in writing, right? So if a customer's unhappy, if a customer's disappointed, they're accusing us of having done something wrong, or we didn't fix their machine right, or God knows what. We don't have that debate in text or in email. We talk
Hmm.
either face to face or on the phone at a bare minimum, right? Because uh, you have this entire generation like that learned that that's what you do, right? You write a hateful review, you send a nasty Facebook message, whatever, and that's how you get results. And we're trying to teach our folks that, and people matter, and relationships matter, and your tone matters, and your empathy matters. And when you engage with humans as humans, right, we can understand each other better, and we can reach consensus faster. We can solve problems quicker, because so much of like things we get upset about, are little slights or perceived slights, or I had a mentor at work that used to say, and I think this is so true, that in the absence of information, humans naturally assume the worst. And I think that is, super true, right? Whenever your car's in for repairs and you're not hearing from them, right? You just start assuming the worst, right? There's
Yeah.
something sideways, it's wrong. They can't get the parts. They're going to screw me over somehow. It's like sort of the way our brain naturally goes. Where if we communicate and we share with one another, like it's so much easier. And where you have an established relationship, um, it's so much easier for things to get crossed up. Like if we make a huge MotoAlliance order and it gets all screwed up, I have zero worries about that, right? Because I know you, I know the company, I know your values. Like things are going to get sideways from time to time, but I know it's going to be fine because Peter's over there, right? And so that's what we're really trying to teach our folks is, have a relationship, have face-to-face conversations, um, avoid that trap of social media and electronic communication.
Yeah, and I think as people that have been in church, as you and I both have, I think ironically, the off-road community could probably teach the church a number of lessons, not the least of which is when you're doing the off-road thing, you're actually with people out in the mud, out in the elements, out in the environment. You're hanging out, you're sharing meals together. I mean, most of
Mhm.
the off-road people that I talk to, they look forward to those weekend events and the weekend rides, and they're hanging out together. So
Absolutely.
they're living a ton of life together. And I think by contrast, the average churchgoer maybe sees each other over a donut and a coffee, for an event on a Sunday morning of some kind, maybe tries to get together. But dude, I don't know about you. I have way too many adult play dates in my life with fellow church goers, meaning we got to set
Absolutely.
something up like 6 weeks in advance just to get together. It's like, that's what I do with my kids. And so I don't know. It seems like that relational element of the off-road world is maybe my favorite thing about the many things I love about it.
And I think you're really hitting on something there. Not only that, but like, what's really exploded and changed in power sports in the last 10 or 15 years is the side by side, right? So specifically the sports side by side is absolutely the most powerful thing we do. It's what really your whole business is centered around. It's by far the lion's share of what we do, even though we do motorcycles and other things. And really what the reason side by side has exploded is just what you just said. It is a social product, right? So the negative to an ATV, ATVs are cool and they can do all the same things for the most part, but they're solitary. So riding an ATV, you got to stop to talk to your buddies, right? The what the side by side did is it allowed you to take your friend or your kid or your spouse along for the ride and share every moment. Ooh, did you see that deer? Ooh, I think we can climb this hill. Let's try this mud pit. Like they're laughing, they're having fun. And then because we kind of rediscovered this social thing, then all the other stuff that comes with that, right? The camping and the event weekends and the big riding parks and the big events. And you're exactly right that the church could absolutely learn from that. It's one of the biggest problems with the modern church, and COVID just made all that worse, right? So
Yeah.
it was bad enough that we think that 20 minutes on Sunday morning or an hour on Sunday morning is what church is all about, and it's the best elements of church are not that, right? It's the relationships that you build and the people whose lives you get tangled up with, right? And you share your walk together. And so COVID not told us that not only was the 20 minutes enough, but you can do it from your couch, which really eliminated the relational aspects.
Yeah, it's the singular thing that I find in teaching in university these days is how many young people, if I ask them the question, do you feel somewhat lonely or isolated or alone? That's probably the primary characteristic by which they would describe themselves, even though they probably have a ton of friends on social media that they are interacting with, or Instagram Reels they're watching, TikTok, all of what they're doing. And yet it correspondingly has presented a loneliness factor that I don't know what the remedy is other than having some kind of affinities, whether it's power sports or you decide you're going to be golfing together, or just move a little closer together. Because if you weren't down where you were and I wasn't up where I was, if we lived next door, I think our wives would kill us, Mark. Because I think we would, it would just be like, hey man, I'm going to hang with Mark again. That's 13
Right.
nights in a row, Peter. Well, it's Mark, so I don't know. It just, there's something about living in closer proximity and having some shared affinities that I think is just more meaningful to some of what you were saying as well, than pinging you on the phone, which you and I do as well.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I'm with you. I don't know the solution. I do think as a race, right, we're going to have to figure out this technology thing. We're going to have to figure out. We all agree we like it, we need it. It makes our lives better in a number of ways, but it's making them worse in a lot of ways too. And I think as parents, as business leaders, as just adults in the room, we have to hold on to those relational things, right? Whatever that is, getting the kids together on Friday nights because that's the night we all go to, have a meal together or whatever. Like those little traditions and those whatever things we can do to come together. And it's why the church, like a church without active small groups and without whatever they call that, right? Home churches. Without that, they're sorely missing out, right? I think that's the days of or the kind of traditional churches where we're going to meet for a few minutes on Wednesday and Sunday morning, and that's it. I don't think that's going to win. I just think going to go the way of the dodo bird. And I
Mm.
think if we're going to survive as a church and we're going to make any progress as a church, we're going to do it relationally, and we're going to do it one relationship at a time.
Yeah. I don't see any other way for it. And the funny thing is if I just even have one friend, it somehow alleviates the loneliness. You don't need like 50. Just to have one trusted friend is just so helpful. But before I let you run, Mark, there's one other thing. You and I could talk about a number of things, and I hope this isn't the last time we podcast together on this. But you have been living my best life now for quite some time, in the sense that I have always wanted to have horses, Mark. This is a bone of contention I've had with you for a very long period of time, is you have had horses and I don't. And it's causing a great degree of jealousy with me, because your girls grew up riding horses, right?
Well, you'll be shocked to know, Peter, that we no longer have any horses.
That is stunning. But are your girls out of the house at this point?
Which actually makes me happy.
Okay, so you got to say more fan. Because you're bursting my bubble.
So my oldest daughter, my oldest child, she's 27 now. She's married. She has two kids of her own. So we're grandparents these days. She is an absolute fanatic, right? She has always loved animals above everything. And when she was 8, 10, 12 years old, I could offer her anything. So, how you want a brand new ATV, you want a new dirt bike? She had zero interest. Like, if it didn't have fur, well, really, that wasn't even a requirement. It could be a snake. It doesn't matter. She just loves animals. And so she was the one that we got into the horse business for, because she was, it was just her passion. And you learn when you have kids that their passion matters, right? So you want to support them and help them with that. I'll tell you a funny story about her. She still has a horse, even though I don't. She was a freshman in college, and Maddie was like, I don't know. She might be 5 foot tall. I don't think so. She's probably 4'11". She weighed about 87 pounds at the time. And she comes to me one day and she's like, Dad, I need to borrow your dually. I'm like, well, why in the world would you need to borrow a dually pickup? She's like, well, I'm going to Missouri because I'm adopting a wild Mustang. And she's like 18. I'm like, you are not adopting a wild Mustang. Like, that's not. That's
just seen way too many movies at this point, right?
Yeah, right. And they do this thing. I don't even know about this, or I didn't know about this. So she educates me on it. Where there's it's a thing that people take these wild Mustangs. It's like a competition, and they spend a year, breaking the horse so you can ride, or it can do whatever horses do. And so she's into that. So she's going to get this wild Mustang, break it herself, right? Ride the horse and compete with it. And I'm like, there's no way that I'm contributing to that. Like, you're going to get killed, right? These things are wild, right? This is nuts. So that kid at 18 years old, hires somebody on U-Ship to haul her to Missouri or wherever she had to go to get this horse and bring it back to Kentucky. She still has it to this day. I don't think she's ever broken it yet, but that's just how passionate she is and how dedicated she is to that stuff. She's something else. She ended up being a zookeeper. Now she's actually a stay-at-home mom now, attempting to live off the grid and raise all her own animals and stuff, and doing really well at it. But prior to deciding to stay home with the kids, she was a zookeeper.
That's just amazing. And grandkids, maybe I didn't know this, Mark. How old are your grandkids?
They are almost 4 and almost 2.
Are they close enough to you and Trish that you guys get a chance to see them?
They are. It's actually awesome. So the kids had bought their own place, and during COVID, when housing prices were crazy, it was in town because that was what they could afford, and they desperately wanted to live out in the country, and because of the animal addiction. And so they decided they could sell their house and make money. And we have a pretty big place and a farm, and we had a second house on the property that was unoccupied. We had kept it for emergencies or family or whatever. So they make this pitch to us that if we would let them live there briefly, they would take care of the place while they got their money together and bought a new place. Well, that was 3.5 years ago. And so what I have learned about that is having your granddaughters like a half a mile away is really cool, because I can jump on a side by side over there and go get one of them and hang out, and we ride around and have a good time. So I really am loving that. I think what they're going to end up doing is just building. We're going to sell them a few acres. They're going to build their own place, but it is nice having them so close.
Love it. All right, last question before I let you go. If you were, let's just say you're going to jump into some sort of off-road vehicle right now and drive the 1,000-ish miles between you and me so that you could set me up with a beer. What long-haul vehicle would you get in? Would it be something in the Kawasaki family, some sort of Polaris, Suzuki? What would you get in?
Well, so like it would be whatever. So there's lots of good ones right now, and but they're pretty specific, right? So they all have features that make them great for one thing or another. So it kind of would depend on what you were doing with it. What I would say is the Kawasaki KRX platform, the Terex KRX 1000. What I love about that machine is it's really built for our terrain. So, or the Southeast, we're big in. We have the mountains, and it's very rocky and rough and kind of low speed technical riding. And that machine was really built for that, and it is really good at it, and it's really tough and durable. So we really like that machine for this terrain. Now, if you're a high speed desert racer or a sand dune guy, there's probably other platforms I would direct you to. But for what we do, that one's probably my pick at the moment.
Love it. Well, dude, it's great to catch up just a little bit. And like I said, a couple of times, we both said it. We didn't get a chance to cover anywhere near the kind of ground we would, but appreciate the time and would love to have you on the MotoAlliance podcast again.
Had a ball, buddy. Love to do it again.
Great stuff. For Kevin Book and for Alicia, our producer, it's been great to be with you again this afternoon. We'll catch you next time here on the MotoAlliance podcast.